Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. We are off to a late start today. I had some difficulties. I hope everybody's hearing me. I hope you're hearing. If someone is there, please let me know if you're hearing. I hope we are hearing. I'm not able to see I want to say Merry Christmas. I hope you had a good Christmas and Happy New Year to everyone. I am trying to navigate my system because I'm using a new system. I had some difficulties with the system. I hope persons are hearing me. However, let me just hope that persons are hearing me. I'm just hoping. All right, good. So good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. Let me hope that you are hearing me and that you are able to hear. I am having some difficulties with my system, but today we want to talk about something that has become very pressing, and that is an issue for us. So I'm trying to use two devices to make sure you're hearing me. And while you're coming in, I'm going to ask you to bear with me just a little because I'm having some issues and I'm making sure that you can hear me. So I'm going to make sure that I can hear myself and that you can hear me. All right, I seem to be off LinkedIn. I seem to have had some issues with the LinkedIn. And so now I'm just gonna be moving. It will have to be heard on YouTube. So today we want to talk about, as we move, purpose-driven, faith-anchored AI smart leadership. And we want to talk about that. All right, so we want to talk about that. For those who don't know me, I'm Dr. Marcia Thomas. I'm a Christian leadership faith-based consultant and also an executive coach. I help female leaders and educational strategic executives to stop working from exhaustion and steward their legacy. And so for this new year, I have rebranded because I have a coach. And so this year, 2022, is promising to be very good. And so we talk about stewarding our legacy as faith-based leaders and not getting caught in the ownership trap. And so stewardship is leaving a system better than you found it. We want to make sure we establish that. The pressure is to maintain a perfect image. To maintain a perfect image, meet expectations, and achieve success can exacerbate symptoms of helplessness. So a leader can constantly be feeling exhausted, burnt out, or alone, or feel that the success, the title, everything is there, but something is still missing. And so today, my goal is to talk about the new executive edge for 2026, which is significance over speed, and how leaders can steward their influence, steward their energy and meaning in a world moving faster than the human soul can process. And that is because there is the incidence of AI. And so AI is advancing rapidly, but leadership is still human work. AI cannot take it over fully. And so the conversation today is not anti-AI, it's pro-people. I want to talk about how leaders can steward their influence and their energy to and meaning in really a world moving faster than the human soul can process. The first thing I want you to understand is that if you don't see yourself as a winner, then you cannot perform as a winner. And so you want this year, 2026, to keep the main thing the main thing. And so Proverbs 4 verse 23 says, above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. And that is what we want to do today as stewards. We want to guard our hearts. And so you want to understand the tension that leaders and executives are facing in 2026 and will continue to face. Because the fact is, leadership has made AI has made leadership more complex than simple. So while AI increases and can make your outlays and your outcomes more efficient, it's also more complex. Why is that? AI increases speed and scale and expectations. And I've experienced that in my small little organization. And leaders are making more decisions faster. You have to make more decisions. You have to be swift on your feet. You have to be more strategic. You have to be more intentional, more focused, more sober when you're using AI so that you get the efficiency and you get AI to do what you really want to do and not what it really is automated to do once it feels that it has sized you up. Because of AI, however, I have discovered that burnout is rising. And even among the high performers who are managing it, it requires a lot of time and energy and a lot of intense focus to get AI to be submissive to your organizational mission, the vision, and the desired outcomes. Efficiency without meaning creates exhaustion. And so AI is an able tool, but AI is a double-edged sword. And so I want us to be clear that the problem is not really AI, it's not the technology, it's leading without grounding yourself. As I said before, you have to know how to master the prompts and the systems that are created to suit your purpose. You have to adapt them and format them to suit your purpose. And so many executives feel productive, yet internally depleted, even when they are of faith and have embraced those systems that is supposed to make it easier. And so they find that they are feeling more internally depleted, they are feeling more alone. It's harder to have that caring side that you want to have. And so you have to be guarded against the submission to AI completely and make sure that you allow AI to submit to you. And so we want to talk about now how to keep up with AI and how to lead well with AI. And those are the two questions that I know that you would maybe want to answer, because those are the questions I ask myself, and those are the questions that I try to answer. How do we keep up with AI, and how do we lead humans well with AI? What do I mean by that? How do we take them from performance to stewardship, from pressure to purpose, from output to significance? The reality is faith-based leadership asks that question, the different question, which is how do we keep up with AI? But more importantly, the faith-based leader executive asks the question, how do we lead humans well with AI? And so it's not how fast we can go, but what are we entrusted to steward? And so we see AI as the tool that it is, and we still see people as the assignment, because that is so important, and that is what guards us. That's the boundary that we put in place as faith-based leaders, so that we focus on people and we focus on the emotional side of persons, the real and authentic side. We actually support persons so they test themselves to see what they can produce. And we'll still focus on giving the type of service that allow persons to build their legacy and to become masters of their own destiny. And so I rest this discussion on three pillars that I think are very important for purpose-driven AI smart leadership. The first one is the inner life and spiritual well-being. You want to maintain that. You want to do everything to have self-care and soul care being very balanced. So you really do the things that matter, and you keep the main thing, stewarding your legacy and not falling into what I call the ownership trap. strategic clarity in a complex AI landscape. You can only get that by being very focused, by being able to lead and govern yourself before you lead and govern others. And that means that what you do is that you accept the things you can't change. You also become self aware of your limitations, what triggers you, and how you trigger others. And you also look at the gaps and what will work for you at your stage and at your age, and how that will propel your legacy, because you want to leave something behind. You want to change your organization, as I said. You want to leave value behind when that time comes. And so you want to change the organization for the better. So you want to leave it better than how you came there. And then there's a relationship leadership that protects people, where you respect people and you value their input and creativity and innovation. You build through delegation, and you also create collaboration rather than competition. And those are the things that we want to talk about. These three pillars form what I call a leadership ecosystem. If one collapses, then burnout fills the gap. So sustainable leadership will integrate all three. Ecclesiastic 4 verse 12 says, a cord of three strands is not quickly broken. And so let's look at the inner spirit, that part of it that we're talking about now, the inner spirit and well-being. All right. So we want to look at the fact that leaders are really important, and they can close burnout. They can close burnout, the burnout that comes from having to make, from decision fatigue, and for having to make crucial decisions in the best interest of all instead of one. And they also have to guard against the emotional burnout that comes from the high critiques, the silent critiques in your organizations, and that self-critique inside of you that makes you feel that you're an imposter, or feel that you're not outputting enough, or make you feel guilty when you say no. And that whole no is very important in 2026. But here is the thing. Leaders really don't burn out from work. They burn out from the stress and the disconnect from all of the things that they have to contend with. And so I say to you, the inner work and your inner life is not optional. It's your infrastructure. And so you want to find that you, as much as you schedule strategy time, as much as you push at meeting the returns and the deadlines, and as much as you push for your outcomes, and as much as you work your accountability matrix, you want to make sure that you set aside some time for reflection. Reflection is very important, because if you don't set aside that quality time for self, for reflection, and for self-examination, and for also revision of your goals that would require you to maybe change up, eliminate those that will not work, you will eventually lose the clarity and the compassion of your heart. So you will be more about the outcomes and more about profits, and not about people. And that's very, very important. And the AI does a terrible thing to person. It accelerates the external demands. And so the inner life is what stabilizes the leadership presence. If it is not examined carefully, then it leads to exhaustion. And so what are the practices that I am suggesting? I am suggesting that we do that pause, intentional pause. And if you follow the other discussions on YouTube and also on LinkedIn, you will find that I give those I give you practical strategies. So you need to revise those, go back to those, and look at that intentional pause or silence. That's very important. That also includes saying the no and reflection. And we say with that reflection, you can have it in a journal, or you make sure you take 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 15 minutes before your feet hit the ground in the morning to check in with self and with the steward, the master who stewards you and gives you your assignment, gives you strength and gives you the discernment and wisdom to do what is required from day to day and outlive, making the main thing the main thing and being able to remain standing at the end of it all, no matter what happens. That collective framing and nurturing of the infrastructure, which is self, the body that you live in, is extremely important because you can't kill yourself for yourself. And that's where the value alignment comes in. You want to look at what truly matters. You want to focus on the fact that you are not an owner. You cannot own every outcome. You cannot own every staff crisis. You cannot own every failure, and you cannot own every success. You want to make sure that you put things in perspective. You steward them carefully. The resources that you have, you steward yourself, you steward others, and you also look at building others so they can be more confident in stewarding themselves. And that's where the values come in. Your core values must be your fulcrum on which you rest. There must be non-negotiables regardless of what happens. And you must remain standing without telling persons what you stand for. Because once you're standing, they will see. And then there's the faith-centered discernment, which is really the proactive reading of the future as it relates to the themes and the patterns that are being established. So you can stop and stem those that will be harmful. You can adjust the outcomes and the goals. You can reframe your mission and your vision, and you can be flexible and adaptable so that you stay ahead of the game. And that's what we talk about, because that wisdom comes from checking in and from God. Now we want to go to the second pillar, because I am speaking from experience when I say I find that AI creates information overload. And this comes from just finishing an AI course. And I think it gives the AI, it creates some overload. It creates decision fatigue, and there is also the initiative overload that can come from AI, because you expect persons to do more because in your mind you have this idea that AI makes it easier and it is simpler. From a leadership perspective, sitting in an executive chair, I am saying it can make things become more complex because the checks and balances have to be on par. You have to make sure that it is still authentic and that it represents the brand and the value that you are projecting, that you have embraced, that you have built over long periods of time. You want to ensure that the compassionate touch, that customer service pitch is right there, because AI can be very mechanical and we can lose customers, we can lose clients, we can lose talent because of it. Persons can become so burnout and exhausted. They can feel so undervalued and so overlooked that it can create more harm than good. So you have to have some clarity questions. You have to get the answers to what matters now. What must humans do, and what should technology support in your organization and not replace? Those are very important questions that you want to ask yourself and you want to get answer to. So we're gonna look at understanding that AI should sharpen strategy. It should not scatter it. And so leaders need to understand and filter. So they need to filter all of what they are doing and streamline your activities so that AI submit to your desires and the outcomes that you want, it should not be that it gives you more tools and it pads your system and make your system not appear to be what it is. I know that as a school leader previously, and also as a business owner, I use AI for data analysis, which is good. But I reserve the human time for relationship because persons are getting more and more stressed. Their mental health is at great risk because of the complex day-to-day issues that they are bombarded with in their personal relationship, interrelationships, as they go and transverse, as they look at how they want to make ends meet and how these things will go. And so the decisions are still human driven for me. And I do everything in my power to reduce the stress and improve the outcomes for those who I deal with. So I'm saying is that we need to promote order and not chaos. We need to promote order and not chaos. So as we look at the third pillar, which is the relationship side of it, we want to look at the burnout that strives, you know, where people feel unseen and speed replaces care and results outweigh dignity. And I put it like that because I'm very, 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 very concerned about the burnout that we are not seeing until we sit down and rest, until we retire, until we have to take a break, until we get sick. That comes from person carrying too much for too long in these organizations because their value is diminished because we are promoting AI over people. They now are unseen and unheard, although the human side of the business is very important. And when we talk about coaching and other things, this is where I'm headed, where speed replaces care, where you're more concerned about meeting deadlines and doing things in what I call impossible parameters that we call time, because people are using AI. So they are supposed not to have the pain and care, and AI will look at the ins and turns, and AI will read the fine print for you. That's not true. Very much not true. And where the results outweigh the dignity. So we begin to marginalize people and we begin to downgrade people because they are making sure that they double check and that they audit the AI to make sure that what we want, the outcomes and the message and the branding remains intact. So I'm not saying that AI cannot optimize systems. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying it cannot replace empathy because those human beings that have to be retained to become AI agents, meaning train them for your organizations. We have as leaders to keep that in mind, and we want to set the emotional temperature of the organization, even if we do AI. So in my organization, I have a decision free Friday where persons come in and we celebrate what is good in them. We wear their favorite colors. We celebrate what is good in them. And we actually talk about something about them that we really love and admire. And that really builds a relationship. It reduces the cognitive overload and the stress and the pressure, so they are now working from peace, and it increases their confidence and restore dignity for whatever was lost, because we are really told in Romans 12 verse 10 to be devoted in what to one another, and we are to treat others the way we want them to be, we want ourselves to be treated. And so relationship leadership really prioritizes psychological safety and healthy boundaries and meaningful connection, which is very important because that will not, we are being pulled in that direction where we must lose those touch. And that's very important. That common touch is so important in life for mental health, for spiritual health, for soul health. Very important. We cannot forsake the assembling of ourselves, and we need each other. And so what are the warning signs that you're leaning in an AI burnout mode? You're leading in that mode. What are the signs that you're leading in an AI-driven burnout mode? Constant urgency, always on ball, very busy, extremely busy. And busy, as I said before in one of my presentations and my posts, is a signal that something is strategically wrong. And it is something that you must watch. It's not a brand. It's not a status symbol. It's not a badge of effective or great leadership. It is a signal that something is wrong and you're in the ownership trap. So you must make sure that you're stewarding your assignment, and that is done through significance, listening actively, respecting people, valuing consensus and team collaboration, and building team spirit and trust, and honoring creativity and innovation, and delegating properly. If you have an emotional attachment where you focus more on the outcome and not how persons are hurting or suffering or the challenges that they are going through, then you are in an AI-driven burnout mode. If you're very impatient with normalcy in relation to somebody coming to work and their car, the tire gets a little puncture, or their engine just shut off because of the climate or the weather, or there is some unforeseen normal day-to-day occurrences that you are not prepared for because nobody's prepared for those issues, but you become very impatient. You feel like they should park their car and come to work regardless and fix it later. Then that is a sign that you're in an AI-driven burnout mode. Or somebody comes to work despite the fact that they are on the first stages of the flu, and you expect them to work at their full capacity, even though they had the heart to actually come, although they were not their best self. But you are very impatient, you're very short, you're very unyielding, and they're expected to do the same. And then if you are meeting your deadlines, of course, you get the title, you're getting the results, you're successful on paper. Very good, you have gotten the accolades, you have gotten a lot of trophies are in your office, but you're productive without feeling joyful. Then you're leading in an AI-driven burnout mode. Because the truth is, burnout is often a systems issue. It is not a personal failure. And once you own it, you're in the ownership trap, and you are not really doing what you're required to do. So let's look at the executive reset. We want to look at that a little. So when you're depleted, organizations feel it, your family feel it. And we must remember that faith calls us to steward people, not consume them. And we want to understand that you are not called to be the source. You were called to be the steward. And you are to steward your assignment, because assignments change, and that's why roles change. That's why job titles change. That's why you either move up or down or out of an organization when God decides that it is time. And so the executive edge for 2026 that I'm proposing is that there is the purpose-driven mandate that you take upon yourself, that you anchor yourself in your faith, and that in the AI smart, purpose-driven mode, you herald persons and bring them along with you, that there is empathy and compassion, that there is respect and trust, that there is growth, and that persons become masters of their own destiny, and that we treat people the way we would want to be treated, and that we maintain our brand and keep our customers through this care-centered approach, which we call human-centered. And then we want to talk about the key shift. The key shift in all of this is that we want to manage our outputs. We don't want to manage our outputs, we want to steward significance. So we want to steward resources, use them well and in the best way. We want to steward ourselves. We want to make sure that we know what triggers us and how we trigger others. And we want to bridge that gap through self-awareness and through intentional pauses. We also want to make sure that reflection is done. And when we talk about reflection, we want to talk about focusing on making the main thing remain the main thing. And as we steward significance too, we want to make sure that we steward people that they feel, those that are under our care, because there's a hierarchy in our organization, feel valued, feel seen, feel heard, feel understood, feel supported. We want to steward our delegation so that the right persons are at the right places and that they are able to do what they are required to do without being micromanaged. Some of those things are what we are dealing with. We want to pay attention to the people who build our in organizations and institutions and what the value that they bring. And we want to collaborate and pull that value as an infrastructure. And so we steward significance so everyone wins in their different areas and in their different mandates and in their different parts. So those parts come together and make a whole. And even if there are small parts, without those parts, there can be a great shift. So I want to look at you doing the inner work for 2026. And the inner work must be done daily or weekly or monthly, depending on you, depending on what your needs are, depending on what your roles and responsibilities are, depending on what your outputs are, your expectations, and the gaps. Because you were not called, as I said, to be the source, you were called to be a steward. And so the future, in my opinion, belongs to leaders who can integrate wisdom, technology, and humanity, and not just efficiency. A lot of us are focused on being efficient and getting great reviews and evaluations. But we must be able to integrate wisdom, technology, and humanity. That will result in quality efficiency that we call stewardship of the talents, which is this strategic alignment that I present in my steward model. So what does the Lord require of you as faith-based executives and leaders? To do justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly, knowing that none of us are islands. So what are the reflection questions for us to do the inner work? What is AI amplifying in my leadership? Ask yourself. Is it clarity or chaos? And if it is clarity, then you need to strengthen those things that remain, those things that are good. You need to build on them. If it is chaos, you want to look at relieving yourself, releasing those things that are not working and replacing them and reframing them so you actually have things that work. Where do I need to re-anchor my inner life? You want to be able to look at that part of it. And who am I called to protect from burnout? So you're going to be choosing stewardship over speed. And that's very important for 2026 because things are changing. They seem to be getting more chaotic and so on. So I want to say to you, stop praying survival prayers. Just reflect on where you are leading from depletion and practice the soul aligned leadership. Lead from purpose and not survival. So another thing we're gonna do is we want to get rid of our survival prayers. And we pray with meaning. We align our souls and we understand our purpose and our daily assignment, and we consult and ask God to lead us as we go out this year in 2026. Of course, you would have chosen your word already because last week I did a post and it was an intense video on how you would choose your word of the year and how you would use it to focus intentionally on what is it that is going to be your hallmark achievement with the others pulling in. So all of what makes it up, what is going to be we are not talking about cobwebs, no, we want to kill the spider. So that is your overarching goal, to kill that spider. And so the other parts are just removing the cobwebs to get to the spider. We want to make sure that we do that. And then we want to look at if this resonated with you, and if you want to lead with clarity, you want to lead with faith, you want to steward your legacy, you want to understand the points that come to it, I want to introduce you to the steward model, which is the model that is really being reframed from our free model. And so it's a steward model program, which is a 90-day executive leadership experience for faith-based executives and strategic educational leaders. And this is not just another leadership course, it's a 90-day strategic reset for educators and for executives who want to steward their influence, their faith, and decision making in their organization with clarity so that they do not lead from exhaustion. They are not standing alone. They are not feeling that they have received everything that they have desired, but something seems to be still missing. They don't have this gnawing disconnect that they should be doing something different or something more. They, especially in this burnt out, prone AI accelerated world. And so in this program, we focus on inner life and spiritual grounding so that your purpose and your assignment matches your calling, and the strategic clarity for complex leadership environments, how to survive in a cumbersome workplace that may be toxic or may be discouraging or may be very productive, but you have no joy. And we also help you to build on your relationship leadership where you are able to protect your people and their performance. So if you're really ready to stop leading on empty and start leading with purpose, alignment, and sustainability, I ask that you apply for the program so that you are now able to steward your legacy and you root it in significance and not speed or success in itself. Or if it resonates with you and you want to escape the ownership trap and restore clarity or strengthen your leadership, well being, and steward your legacy, then you can take the next step to schedule your executive steward clarity session to find out more and how it relates to you and to do your audit. You can also start the process by downloading, and the link is on my bio on LinkedIn or on Facebook. You will see it in that profile section, the link for you to download your God inspired legacy blueprint. So as a leader, you see the areas in which you can build on that. And you can also get a copy of My Faith Looks Up. So because as leaders, we don't just shape outcomes, we shape cultures. And 2026 is the moment that we need to lead differently and keep the main thing, the main thing, laying up treasures in heaven while we build on earth. And so My Faith Looks Up help leaders align their faith, their purpose, and leadership clarity in complex time. You can gift or purchase a copy to deepen your leadership foundation and support restorative impact. And that's very important, especially for the crisis and the complex challenges that we have started with in 2026. So thank you for joining me today. Have a blessed and purposeful self-care Tuesday. And remember, you are not just a leader, you're on the divine vessel with a sacred assignment. God doesn't want you to serve from empty, He wants you to serve from overflow. All right? Have a great day, everyone.